Hello lovely friends, how are you all doing? I hope you're all doing better than me. Oh good grief this year. So for those of you who aren't on face ache, I've got COVID. What day am I on? I'm either on day 9 or day 10. Hence, you know, I look dishevelled, I know it. There we go. Yeah, what an odd and annoying experience. Goodness knows where I got it. The fact of the matter is, you know, I am out and about. I don't go to crowded places. You know, I don't go to pubs and clubs and all that kind of malarkey. But I am going in and out of shops and in and out of the post office. Actually, at the post office, it's great. It's the one place in my little high street where people are still really social distancing. It's brilliant. They've still got all the marks on the floor from 2 years ago. People do seem to be very respectful about just give people space. Never mind COVID, just give people their personal space. I can't stand it when I'm in a queue and I can feel someone's breath on the back of my neck. It's like way too intimate, mate. The only person's breath that I should feel on the back of my neck is that of a lover. Back off, buddy. Yeah, so look, I've picked it up from somewhere, goodness knows where. It was weird because so the last videos you've seen, thank goodness I got something in the can before I got sick, I'd had that lovely sort of morning, early afternoon at the garden when I had the lovely garlic harvest. I'm so grateful there wasn't, 6 garlic out of 80 having a little tiny touch of white rot. I'm counting that as I didn't have white rot this year. It was a lovely session, and if you remember in the video, it was getting harder and harder to film because the site was filling up and filling up. That's right, because it was the Jubilee. It was the start of the of Platinum Jubilee 4-day weekend. So I was perfectly happy to stop filming and just do other things around my garden because there were so many other folk around. It was really lovely to just, you know, have conversations. But I suddenly felt really tired, like more tired than normal. I always feel tired. I don't sleep great. Anyone who has chronic pain will know that with chronic pain comes chronic tiredness because you never get a decent night's sleep. Anyway, yeah, I felt a bit kind of lightheaded, a bit kind of vague, or at least more vague than I normally feel. So I thought, well, you know what, I've got the broad bean harvest. I need to get them home and get my podding done and get them in the freezer. I like to do things as promptly as possible in terms of the harvesting and then the preserving. Really preserve as much freshness as I can. So I thought, never mind, I'll go home and do that. And as you'll have seen by now, while I was podding, chatting and like making like you were here with me, because podding really should be done with friends and a chat. And I don't know what time I finished that. That's right, because when I got home, this is my usual sort of pattern of doing things. Because I'd filmed in the garden, when I got home, the first thing I did was download the footage into the computer and do the edit. And that all takes about an hour and a half. And then once the video is made, it then has to render, which normally takes about 2 to 3 hours. So whilst it was rendering, that's when I came in the living room and sat and did my podding and filmed our podcast. Oh God, I know I'm a cheese fest, aren't I? Anyway, so by the time I'd finished podding, that had rendered, and it's like, okay, now I can upload it to YouTube. I felt so tired, and I'd planned to do other work that evening. There's always something to do, and I just thought, oh no. And this is so rare for me. It can have only been about 6:30, 7. I curled up on the sofa, put a video on. A video, hello 80s girl, a DVD. And then, oh my goodness, I started shaking. I was shivering so violently. I thought, I'm definitely coming down with something. I'm going to put myself to bed and read. So despite being clothed, hoodie, I had my duvet on, I had the quilt on. I was like the princess and the pea, except I was the pea underneath it all. I just couldn't stop shaking and shivering. And I was like, oh, Vivi, you're ill. You're ill again. And I don't know, it's about 2 o'clock in the morning when I took my temperature, and it was 39.1, which is, I've forgotten what that is in Fahrenheit now. It's about 102, and it's like, wow, that's a bit of a naughty fever. Because I normally sit at around 35.7, 35.8. So most people think the norm is 36.5. That's only the norm if that's your norm. That's not my norm. 36.5 for me is actually a slight elevation. Anyway, long story short, for a couple of days, I did not move from my bed. I got up to go to the bathroom, of course, and, I made sure, I always drink my water anyway, but even though I was in bed that whole time, I was sort of drifting in and out of sleep. Every time I open my eyes, have a sip, have a gulp, take paracetamol every 6 hours, help bring that temperature down. So that's it. I got COVID. So then I tested myself and it's like, yeah, it's COVID. And pretty darn horrible it is too. And I just think, thank goodness I had 2 jabs. I missed out the booster jab because that's when I had that viral pneumonitis over sort of December, January, when that landed me up in hospital. So when you're poorly with something like that, you can't, they won't give you a booster at that stage. It's too much for the body. So yeah, anyway, it has that kind of the horrible fever that's gone. And what it's left me with now is I've had a headache for the whole time. It's just there. Nausea, that's the weird one, feeling really nauseous all the time. Yay, I'm on the COVID diet. No, I am. The first sort of 4 days or so, I didn't eat a thing. I could hardly get out of bed, never mind preparing a meal for myself. More about the food in a minute. I'm learning new things through being off with COVID. But yeah, for those first 4 days, I didn't eat a thing. I just couldn't face it. I couldn't get out of bed to cook, do any of that. But I was scrupulous about keeping up with my fluids and keeping up with there are some supplements and stuff to take, my vitamin D and my inhaler I was doing. But yeah, and then the last few days it's been really simple food, really, really simple. Soup, a bit of toast, porridge, that's kind of it. And yeah, I think, I'm sure the headache and nausea will go eventually, but the biggest thing is absolute, utter exhaustion. I've never known anything like it. I wanted to sit and have this chat, 4 or 5 days ago. I was thinking, we'll sit and have a chat. There's been a few things I want to sort of share. And it's like, I can't even I can't speak. I couldn't even be bothered to go to the cupboard, which is where I keep the bag with my camera and my tripod and bits. It's like, it's too much of an effort to walk to the cupboard. It's ridiculous. So anyway, look, where am I? I'm day 9 or day 10. I don't know which one it is. Still testing positive. So I'm staying at home. Amazingly, the guidance has changed. I couldn't quite believe this. And the guidance is, stay at home if you can, but if you can't, just wear a mask when you're out. I'm like, that's why we're spreading COVID. It's like, surely if you've got COVID, just stay at home. Is it really going to hurt you to stay? Look, I know some people might have jobs where their boss might sack them for being off ill, tribunal. But I just think, I got this because someone else was out there walking around with COVID. Anyway, what I'm hoping is that, you know, within the next couple of days, I'll test negative, then I can get out again. And, oh my goodness, the garden. So, I think it was like after a couple of days of being like really ill and doing the test, it's like, right, there's no way I'm getting to the garden anytime soon. So I messaged one of the girls next door to say, would you mind watering my cold frame little plants, because I've got all my squash and tomatoes in there and all the peppers, plus on the step of the shed I've got all the little pots that I'd sowed with beans. Now I'd also, on the table outside the shed, I've got a load of pots of beans that I'd sowed, and also all the stuff on the deck, but we'd been getting quite a bit of rain, so I wasn't bothered about those. But the pots that are right on the, it's that little bit of veranda that's outside the shed, and where the roof overhangs, I was thinking they're going to be getting dry. So I messaged to say, would you mind watering the cold frame and the ones on the shed stoop? I haven't, and of course she says, yes, of course. Do you need anything else? Bless her. I haven't been back in touch, which I'm just hoping that she has watered each time she's been to the garden. Because I don't think we've had any rain in the last 10 days. I might be mistaken, but yeah, so fingers crossed she's kept my plants alive for me. I really hope. But so I have been thinking about and worrying about the garden. Of course I have, because I was struggling anyway. This is the crazy thing. I've had a lot of thinking time. This is the absolute crazy thing this year. We are 5.5 months into the year. Yeah, January, February, March, April, May, we've had, and about 2 weeks of June. So we're 5.5 months into the year, and this year I've spent 3.5 months incapacitated by something or other, whether it was the chest virus, and even though I was at home from hospital on, I think it was about the 5th of February, the whole of February I was kind of white, which is just incapable. And then of course my back going out for 4 weeks, which is crazy for my back. You know, in the past when I've tweaked my back, it's okay again in a week or so. And now COVID. So yeah, of the first 5.5 months of this year, I've missed 3.5 months of action. And when I kind of look at it like that, I think, you know what, you need to just forgive yourself, Vivi, for not having got to where you want to get to or were planning to, because there's no way you can make a whole garden plus do all the other stuff I do in 2 months. It's a physical impossibility. So once I sort of acknowledged that, I thought, okay, you know what, if my paths are weedy, I'm sure people will forgive me for that. Never mind other people forgiving me. I can forgive myself for that. But undoubtedly, I'm going to have to change the plan in the garden. There's just no way I can do the garden of previous years in the time I've got left. I mean, crikey, by the time I've got nothing planted. There's not a single plant in the ground. And I know people are like, oh, you'll catch up, baby, you'll catch up. But bear in mind, even before COVID, how slowly I was going because of my stupid knees. Even with, like, COVID out of the picture, I would have still thought, you know what, I'm at a stage now where there's no way I can catch up. I just physically can't. There's just not enough hours or hours in my knees to do it. So that's even before COVID. And what so many folk have told me about their experience of COVID, and also friends. I've got a couple of really good plot friends who a year after, and they're still struggling with energy. They fortunately have a partner that they do the garden with. So the partner is doing the garden. So yes, I've got to be realistic, I've got to be sensible, because I do want to get a wriggle on down there. I do want to put my tomatoes and my squash, etc., in. I do still want to have beans if I can, But I don't want to, I don't want to be stressing about it right now at home, because stressing about the garden is it's just going to stop me getting better. So that's one thing. But also when I do get back there, I don't want to be flogging my body to create a garden and just making myself ill again, or just prolonging this. It's just not worth it. So I have had a few ideas about how I can change things. One thing is, you know, my lovely bean arches that I put over my paths, and they're so lovely each year. Great space saving idea. Doing bean arches over the paths frees up other beds in the garden for me to grow something else. Brilliant. I'm not doing bean arches this year. They take too long because every arch has to be made, and then they go in, and then they've got to be braced, and then they've got to have their flying buttresses. The bean arches each year takes me a whole day just to get the bean arches up. That is ridiculous. I don't have a whole day to do it, but also I think the way my energy feels, I think it'd probably take me 2 days this year, crikey. So I'm going old school. I'm going back to what I used to do 5-6 years ago, which is the old-fashioned method of a row of canes down one side, a row down the other, slightly faced in, interlaced at the top, just grow like that. So that means that they're going to go into a bed instead of being over the paths. Now, going into a bed means I have to sacrifice a bed. Oh, shock horror. But, for example, the cucumbers. All my cucumbers got eaten by slugs. Now, I could sow direct. I sowed direct last year and they came up a treat. Brilliant. But I did that, I can't remember when it was exactly, end of May, beginning of June. By the time I get back to the garden now, this is how crazy it is. We're coming up for the summer solstice. By the time I get back to the garden, the summer solstice will only be a matter of days away, and there's nothing planted. So I suddenly thought, you know, with the cucumbers, yeah, I could sow them direct. I'd have to build the cucumber climbing frame. I thought, do you know what? Stuff it. I don't care. I ain't having cucumbers this year, so I've scratched the cucumbers. So that's one bed where I can put the beans. Great, that bed hasn't been dug, maybe it won't be. And then the other bed I was thinking of is one of the salad beds, because, you know, the slugs had all my salads. So I've got a sort of a half-hatched plan already to sort of rescue the garden but without killing myself. It's always that thing about just what's the most practical way to deal with the hand that's been dealt. You know what, I don't want to give up, I won't give up, but on the other hand, I'm not going to be stupid and kill myself to do the garden that I've always done. That'd be silly. And so therefore, any of the bits of salad that are coming up and sort of my peppers, they're just going to be dotted all over the garden. They're not going to have their own bed, just wherever I've got a gap. So for instance, I've no idea because I haven't been down there, like, say the carrots don't grow, fine, stick some salady bits in where the carrots were supposed to be. What if I've got intermittent germination in the parsnips? Fine, stick some bits of salad in or stick some peppers in. Basically, I'm not sweating the design of the garden this year. Just stick it in wherever it will fit. Wherever there's a bit of soil that's, you know, half decent enough for planting. So yeah, I will have a better idea when I go back to the garden. So I think, I think what we'll do is, let's go to the garden, like the minute I feel fit enough to even do the walk, let's go to the garden and we'll do a tour, we'll forgive all the mess and the weeds, and during that I can kind of hopefully illustrate this better by being there, and also it'll help firm it up for me of like, oh yeah, that bed might be free. So for instance, where the garlic and broad beans, well, the broad beans are still in because there's still some to harvest. But the garlic and broad beans, when they come out, they normally make way for brassicas. But the sogs had loads of my brassicas too. So maybe I'm going to have just loads of pepper beds and not brassica beds. You know what? I mean, the thing is, oh yeah, talking about vegetables and veg shopping, this ties into it. I was going to say that over the winter in the UK, our brassicas are, you know, we can get them at a reasonable price. We produce a lot of brassicas in this country. They're freely available in the shops. So what if I don't have brassica beds? I'll have grown something this summer like the peppers. And maybe if I grow loads and loads of peppers, I can trade some of them for a credit note now to spend on brassicas in the winter. Who knows? One of the things that came out of that shopping haul video, there were all sorts of ideas. Yes, veg boxes. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought and my brain is addled. Basically, as I was going through everybody's comments, I was thinking, oh yeah, because I used to have a veg box before I was in this flat. I can't have a veg box delivery here because I've got no outside space for delivery to be put. But yeah, I was making all sorts of notes of ideas to think about for, you know, next year when I don't have a garden. Where am I going to buy my food? There's all sorts of options. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying, back to the garden for a second, about, you know, saying to myself, well, so what if I don't have brassicas? They're plentiful in the UK in winter. The only thing I'm thinking about with the brassicas, not having my own, and this is in general for some of the veggies I grow, is some of the things I grow aren't that readily available in the shops. So for example, broad beans in the UK, we probably have them in the shops. Maybe there's a sort of a 2-week window where we will see them in the shops. Expensive though. They're almost sold like a speciality thing. It's crazy because they're easy to grow and plentiful. And things like cavollo nero, we don't see that in the shops very much. Purple sprouting broccoli is so expensive. So that's the only downside I think about, well, one of the downsides of not having the garden. I might not get those more sort of specialist veggies that I grow and that I like. But yeah, after the shopping haul video, I've made a load of notes of different avenues to explore for my veg buying next year. And of course, I will relay that information to all of you too, because, you know, it might be useful for some of you. Now, talking of food, I made a couple of notes because I wanted to remember a couple of things to... Right, so yeah, new garden plant, good. Food shopping notes for next year, good. So, whilst I've been at home isolating, I can't remember what day it was. It must have been, like, I think day 5 or day 6. Because like I said, I didn't really eat for a couple of days. And then I was sort of like, oh, I need to eat. Don't really feel hungry. I have this nausea, but I must eat. What have I got? And, you know, in terms of what was in my fridge and sort of ready and easy stuff, it just had so little in. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to do a food shop. Because the thing is, yes, I've got freezers full of ingredients. I've got squash sitting around, ingredients, whatever. But there was nothing that I could just go, all right, just grab it and eat it. Oh, I could grab a raw onion, grab a raw squash. No thanks. And there was absolutely no way I was going to spend even 15 minutes in the kitchen making a meal. There's no way. I can't, it's hard to describe, and I don't want to sort of go, I'm not going, ooh, poor me, but just to, you know, share the experience of what it's been like, to explain that absolute, total and utter exhaustion and, you know, at times, just the inability to move, not move an inch, you know. Anyway, so I was thinking, oh, you know, I need to get some food delivered. How? Oh. And then I suddenly remembered I'd set up one of the supermarkets, a supermarket delivery system. I'd set one of those up about, crikey, 7-8 years ago or so now for Auntie Teapot. Because what I was finding was, because I was still working in those days, excuse me, I was finding that there were some days where my shift pattern was just, you know, I'd be a day on, a day off, a day on, a day off. So when I was going to Auntie Teapot, I was literally doing it there and back in a day, rather than having 2 days and me staying overnight with her. And on those days, because of the timing of the trains and I only get down to her about 12 noon, and then I'm leaving again at about 6. So it's only a small window of time to do a lot of stuff while I'm down there. So while I'm down there, if I'm also going out and doing a load of shopping, it wasn't something I'd kind of thought about until a friend mentioned it, and I thought, oh, let's see how easy it is to do this whole supermarket shopping delivery to the door. And it worked out great, because what I could do is, in London, I could sit down and do the order, because there are some things which are repeated all the time, favourites and staples and all that sort of thing. But there are other things, like, so on a visit, I'd say, you know, what are you fancying at the moment? Is there something else? You know, so that for my next order, I could include a slight change or whatever it was. Anyway, so I could do my order in London on, let's say I was going down to her on Thursday. I'm at work Tuesday and Wednesday and Friday. Tuesday night after work, I can come home, go on my computer, do the whole order, brilliant, and arrange for it to be delivered on Thursday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, for example. So that's when I'm already at the house. And, excuse me. Oh, a bit of a cough. I'm not coughing. I haven't been coughing with this COVID stuff, amazingly. And I've just got to say as well, oh my goodness, how relieved am I that it doesn't seem to be bothering my lungs, especially after, you know, I was really worried because my lungs took a hammering in December and January. Anyway, yeah, so this food order thing, it was fantastic because I could get down there. I'd usually have the food delivered for about, say, a couple of hours after my arrival. So I could get down there and make a cup of tea. It's the first thing I do. Make a cup of tea, and the first half hour, just sit and chat with Auntie Teapot. Have a bit of a catch up, bit of a gossip, bit of a natter, and then I can get on with things. So by the time the food order would come, I'm there, I can just like quickly whack things away, fridge, freezer, you know, whatever it is. So I suddenly remembered I'd set up this account for her. So I went online in my state. It's like, fortunately I remembered the password. I don't know how I remembered it because it was a bit of a weird one. And I thought, oh, this is great. So I'd already decided that what I wanted to order was just, oh my goodness, I can't believe I've done this, ready-made soup. You know, the soup that's in the chiller section? I mean, who buys soup? You know, I always make my own soup, of course I do, and normally I'd have a load in the freezers, but it's been that kind of time of year where I haven't been doing sort of massive cook-offs because there's been not much to harvest, using up the dregs of what's in the freezer. Anyway, the point is I didn't have any soup ready-made for myself of my own in the freezer. So yeah, I bought ready-made soup. How lazy, but I don't care. You know what? I had to eat something, and there's no way I was standing up in the kitchen and cooking. So I'd ordered, I thought, you know, a load of the ready-made soups, a loaf of bread, and a bit of, what's it called, Proactive, you know, the sunflower, I can't speak, sunflower oil, margarine type thing. And genius last moment decision, a tub of ice cream. Not an expensive, not one of the fancy pants ones, just regular ice cream. And that was so lovely in my throat because my throat was so sore. What else did I order? Oh, oat milk, a couple of oat milks for my porridge because I'd run out of that. I can't remember now. Anyway, it was dead basic stuff. And it came to £18. I was like, oh my God, I never spend £18 on my grocery shop. But you know what? Honestly, I didn't care. I wanted a bit of food. I didn't want to have to cook it. Just bring me food, please. But, oh my goodness, it didn't half catch me out. £5 for the delivery, plus a surcharge for putting less than £40 in the basket. The surcharge was £4. And I saw this and I just thought, oh God, I just, you know, when you're poorly, you just can't think straight, and everything is so, it makes me want to cry right now. I'm not going to. But I just thought, I'd only got £18. I'd have to spend another £22 to not pay the surcharge. And I thought, well, I don't have another £22 to spend, but also I don't know what I want. I don't want anything. I don't know what I want. Oh, someone else do it for me, please. It's the worst thing. And it's pretty much the only time that I hate the fact that I live on my own. Being ill. When you're ill, you just want to put your hands up and say, look, can someone else please take over? Can someone else just run this joint? Because I can't. Anyway, the point is, I felt so bamboozled by it. And I picked a time slot for delivery. It was the only one left for that day, like 10 o'clock at night. And there's a little clock in the corner, talk about jeopardy, and it's saying, you need to place this order by, and the time was running out. I had like 9 minutes left to place the order by. It says, you place the order by such and such, or you will lose this time slot. I was like, Anyway, I just thought, you know what, I'm not spending £22 on food that I can't even think about at the minute, so I had to pay the surcharge. But anyway, the long and the short is, for £18 worth of food, it cost £27. The delivery and the surcharge was £9. 50% of the value of the food I spent on the. So look, that's a one-off. I shan't be doing that again ever, I hope. And it just I'm sweating again. And I think it just shows, doesn't it, how, like, just always have a stock of ready meals that you've made yourself, whether it's soups or, you know, comforty things like chili or curry or whatever comforts you. Always have a stash of them in your freezer so you don't end up getting caught out and ending up having to buy food that A, is expensive already. Ready-made soup from the supermarket, how expensive. So there's that expense, but also the whole delivery and surcharge. But look, I was grateful that was an option. Brilliant. Done. Oh my goodness. Just to say, cards. This is a clean cloth. I've been boiling, even though I don't have a temperature anymore, not one you would consider a temperature. So I'm going to talk about cards in a second. But before I got sick, so remember when I did the shopping haul, some of those items were from Lidl. So the porridge oats, coconut milk, I can't remember what else now, the arborio rice. And you know what, Lidl is so great, isn't it? It's cheap, thank goodness. But the Lidl in my town, I hate it because it's one of those shops that's gone over almost entirely to self-service. You know, the self-service checkouts. They usually have one checkout open, but it's generally the folk who are using it are the ones who've got a massive trolleys worth. So they take ages to go through, and it's like, am I going to wait? I've got, say, some porridge and a coconut milk. Am I going to wait behind someone who's doing a weekly shop for a family of 25, it looks like, or use self-service? And so often I end up using the self-service there. I hate it, but, you know, there we go. So the other day, just a little grumble. When I go shopping, generally speaking, and this is kind of my setup for the whole week, generally speaking, on a Saturday or a Monday, there's no set day, I will go to the cash point at my bank and take out money for the week. And that's money for everything. That's my food, my £12 food allowance, but it's also money for the post office, for me sending parcels. It's money for me to spend at auction sales, charities, whatever, where I'm trying to pick up stuff for the shop. It's money for fabric, what have you. So I'll normally go, right, that's it. It's me 50 quid taken out, and that'll do me for the whole week for everything, all those things. So when I go to Lidl, or any shop for that matter, I'm paying in cash. Nice and simple, nice and straightforward. I just need to go and refill my water. Give me a tick. That's better. Yes, so back to Lidl. The day when I did that bit of shopping, my rice, coconut, whatever, I had more than that in my shopping bag, my basket, because I was shopping for a couple of other people too. I'd mentioned to a couple of neighbours, just popping down to Lidl, is there anything you'd like? So I had a few, bits and pieces. So I had more than just, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 items. So, scan, put to the side, scan, doing all my own checkout, come to the payment bit, go to pay, and it's card only. So, I don't know, I think I was in a bit of a grumpy mood that day. So there's always an assistant. This is why it's like, instead of having him hanging around the self-service, just get rid of the self-service and have him on a checkout, because essentially he's, anyway. I didn't work it out, but I was trying to put my, £20 note into the slot. It wouldn't go. And then I saw it was like, oh, card. So I said to the guy, is this card only? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, why isn't there a sign to say card only? And he's like, grumbling at me. And then he went, well, just use your card. And I went, well, I've got cash. And he's like, I mean, is it a problem? Is it a problem to use your card? And I snapped at him and I said, well, yeah, it is actually, because I don't have any money on that card, because I've taken it out and this is it. This is all the money I've got. And he was like, ooh. And so he moved me to another checkout, and he'd I didn't have to ring everything through. He did something. He obviously transferred the list into this, and someone came to use the one that I had now abandoned, and he's like, oh, you're going to have to wait because this woman won't use her card. She's holding it up, words to that effect. And I was like, firstly, shut up. Secondly, don't humiliate me. And thirdly, just think about it for a second. Think about who some of your customers are. And there are more and more of us in this day and age with the prices the way they are. Just that, saying I've got cash in my hand and you're saying use a card. It's like, well, hang on a minute. I've taken my cash out. There are going to be so many of us in a similar situation where there's no money on the card because we've taken it out in cash. We have bank accounts that have 5 pence in them. I mean, obviously I do have more money than that. I'm not trying to, but I have my money, I put my money in savings. I have a very limited amount of cash available. I keep it that way so that I don't overspend, So if I went home and went on the computer, went on to my online banking, I could move money from the savings part into my current account to spend. But I can't do that in the middle of the shop without anyway. It really made me grumpy because I just thought, I'm sure there's a lot of people, and there's going to be more, who are working in cash at the moment, just a tiny bit of cash, maybe a cash in hand job, whatever it is. Anyway, talking of cards, oh good grief. Again, if you're on FaceSake, you'll know this by now already, but I've had 2 bank cards fraudulently used. So whilst I've been off and feeling grotty, the first sort of 3 or 4 days I was pretty much in bed the whole time. Missed all of the Jubilee stuff. Saw a bit of highlights. Saw the Paddington Bear bit. Oh, I loved that. It was so cute. I just like Queenie in that moment. I was like, oh my God, I love you so much, Queenie. Even though I'm not a monarchist. But her and anyway. But after that, I was like, right, try and get up every day, Vivi. Just try and get up and do a little bit of something. And part of that is I check my bank accounts every day. It's so easy online, isn't it, to do that? It's just part of my morning routine. I turn the computer on, I answer comments, messages, emails, quickly check all my accounts. Done. One morning, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago now, 4 or 5 days ago, I opened up an account which I basically don't use. I mean, I do use it because I've got an account. It's my saving fund specifically for the house move. So it's where I'm saving for things like solicitors' fees, estate agents' fees, a removals firm, all that kind of thing. So that account was for a different purpose originally. So I do have a debit card with it, but that debit card hasn't been used for a year. Possibly more. That account, the only action that account has seen in the last year or so is bits of money coming in. I don't take money out. It's basically, it's sort of like a holding account, if you like. Anyway, it was that account. So I saw straight away 3 weird transactions. Someone has paid with my card their council tax bill, their rent, and their Virgin Media package. It's a total of 450 quid. I was like, oh, are you kidding me? No. Anyway, I'm going to cut a long story short because otherwise I'm talking for ages and I feel tired. I want to go back to bed. By the way, I've still got my pyjama trousers on. I only dressed the top half of me. Anyway, yeah, I was mortified when I saw it. I was mortified because 20 years ago or so, very late 90s, early noughties, I was working in London and my cash card, my bank card, sorry, get your head together. My statement showed a cash withdrawal for £200. Today, that's the equivalent, is about 300 quid. It's a huge amount of money. At that time, it was almost a week's pay. So this cash withdrawal had been made. So I got straight onto the bank and said, this is fraudulent. The cash withdrawal had been made in Manchester. I was in London. I could prove I was in London. I was at work in London. And at 5:30-ish in the afternoon, after work, it's when I was working in one of the Books Etc. branches, Hammersmith, I remember it. Me and a few of the guys, we'd said, let's go and have a drink after work. It's a nice day, let's go down to the river and have a drink. So at 5:30 at Hammersmith, where the tube station is and where these shops are, I'd used my cash card to get out like 20-30 quid to go and have a few drinks on the river. Anyway, so obviously I got in touch with the bank and I had to jump through so many hoops. I had to do a written statement first of all. Then they got back to me and said, well, then I had to prove that I was in London. So I managed to get hold of a copy of the rota from work to show them. Sent that to them, and then they came back to me and were like, well, you must have given your card to someone. I was like, firstly, no. Secondly, I used the card. I had the card. I've used that cash point at 5:30 in Hammersmith Broadway. And they still wouldn't refund me because they said that I could have given my card to a friend, got them to take the train up to Manchester to do the withdrawal, come back on the train, handed the card over to me. Oh, fraud complete. I'm in it with them. It was one of the most frustrating and angry-making things ever because some thief, I don't know how they've done it, has either copied, whatever it is. So some thief has taken 200 quid from me and the bank have given me no support, and basically the bank have said you're in on it. So they're kind of calling me a thief. Things have changed because we now know that someone can make a cash point withdrawal without your card, without you giving your PIN number to someone. We know that can happen now. So thank God things have changed, and in the instance of that one I saw, it's like 450 quid. They could see immediately that these transactions were completely out of ordinary for me. And she was brilliant. Her name's Megan. Shout out to Megan on the phone. She was fantastic. And literally within seconds and in front of my eyes, they refunded it all. It was just like, oh, what a relief. But then, 3 days later, so now we're talking a couple of days ago, it happened again on a different bank card, different bank. And now this one is a bank card I use. I use it at the cash point. This is the one that I use to get my 50 quid out each week. So I don't use it in neither card I use for paying for things, online purchases. The other one I don't use for purchases at all. Anyway, it happened again, different bank, call them, it was slightly less, it was considerably less. Someone had bought gym membership for a gym I've never even heard of, and because I only have 50 quid in the account, you see, this is what I mean about I only keep 50 quid there, it was something like 47.95 they'd spent, and that's all they could because there's nothing else in the account. But this bank is a bit different. I still haven't refunded it. They've said, well, we have to let it go through before we can then refund you. Anyway, the bottom line is now, for both of those accounts, obviously the cards were stopped. They've been cut up and thrown away, pardon me. So, yeah, and without a bank card at the moment. The guy that I was nearly said, I'm not going to say the name of the bank, but the guy, the second one, I was saying, oh my goodness, but if they cut the card up, I can't do my food order. And he's like, just go into branch. You can get cash from branch. Take some ID. And I said, I've got COVID. I'm isolating because I've got COVID. He said, you can go in the bank with COVID. Everyone does. It's fine. Anyway, yeah. What? It's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Honestly, the last sort of thing I want to deal with when I'm feeling at such a low ebb. And of course, they're going to send new bank cards. And that will mean that where I do have payments set up on, not on the one, but on my main one, it means I will have to change things online, and that'll be a faff and a palaver, but it'll be done. Anyway, you know what? I'm hoping now, please let my little run of bad luck be over, because I think I've had more than my fair share this year. I'm trying to smile. I've had some nice bits of post. I think I'll save that for another day though, because they are some lovely bits of post. But yeah, I'm trying to keep my pecker up, trying to smile, trying to, just trying not to be beaten. I do feel a bit beaten, if I'm honest, but I'm trying not to. So hopefully, all being well, in maybe another 2 or 3 days, I'll get back to the garden. I am dreading it. Look, here's what... Okay, let's be positive. I was going to say I'm dreading it, weeds everywhere, things are dead, Let's remain optimistic that that my neighbour has managed to keep all my cold frame plants alive, and that I've got something to plant out. So that will be great, have something to plant out. And let's focus on that. Let's focus on planting things out. Never mind about the weeds, never mind about all the fancy structures. Nah, it's just whatever I've got, let's get it into the soil so it's got half a chance. So hopefully we can do that really soon. If this lingers a little bit, like I said, I'm not going to push it. There's a couple more videos I want to make which are indoor videos. The next in our low spend year. And there's another one which is prompted by Ant. So that may happen. Oh, I don't know. I don't know when things are going to happen, or or where I'm going to be. But yeah, the show must go on. The show must go on, even if it's a little bit slow. We'll get there somehow. All right, my lovelies, thank you for catching up with me today. I think those changes that I'm planning to make for the garden will hopefully just about rescue the garden this year. Anything. And, you know, the bottom line is this. This hasn't been a great start to the year in terms of health, injury, what have you. But you know what? I'm not beaten. I'm jolly well not going to be beaten. And, you know, we'll just find a way through. I will find a way through. And just hope now that I don't get clobbered with anything else in the meantime. So yeah, staying optimistic. This is not a downer. This is definitely not a downer. It's a bit but it's not a downer, as in, you know. Good. Right. I need to go and lie down. I need to go and eat ice cream. I will see you all again really soon, I hope. But until then, please take care of yourselves. I mean, I'm still all for masking. Just, you know, take care of yourselves and maybe just keep a little tiny bit of distance from people you don't know, and just try and stay safe and away from it and happy. Just stay in your garden. Don't leave your garden. Just stay in your garden. Don't talk to anyone. Don't see anyone. Just stay in the garden. Oh, that's the way forward for me, I think. All right, lovelies. Until next time. Cheerio.